The sky over Bosnia, 1994. 6 Serbian jets slipped beneath the clouds, carrying bombs toward their target. But above them, 2 American F-16s wait fast, armed, unstoppable. Engines roar, radars lock. One side flies relics from another era, the other controls the most advanced fighters in the world. In seconds, the quiet morning turns into a deadly chase. Missiles streak, cockpits shake, men fight for their lives, and one pilot will face a decision that shocks everyone. So how did a battle measured in minutes become the first combat in NATO's history? Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The morning sky was pale, cold, and deceptively calm. Suddenly, a jet burst into fire, shattering into burning fragments. Flames spiraled downward, marking the air with death. It was February 28, 1994. The Balkans were locked in conflict, and the skies above Bosnia were about to write history. 6 Serbian J-21 Yastrebs had launched at dawn. Their leader, Ranko Vukmirovic. 5 wingmen followed, determined to complete the mission. Their target, a weapons factory hidden deep inside Bosnia. Their orders: strike quickly, then vanish before NATO could respond. But vanishing would not be possible today. The J-21 was never built for this fight. It was a subsonic trainer, a relic turned attacker, armed with simple bombs and cannons. It was hopeless against modern jets. The men knew it. They whispered in their cockpits, forcing courage into their voices. One compared their planes to old Yugos, joking bitterly. By contrast, the Americans flew Falcons sleek, fast, and lethal. The F-16 was called the Ferrari of the sky, and Ferrari always outran a Yugo. Still, the Serbian pilots pressed on. They had sworn to fly, no matter the odds. Obedience left no room for hesitation. Their plan was fragile. Stay low, hugging valleys and treetops to avoid radar. Then, only at the last second, climb high enough to release bombs. For a time, it worked. Engines purred close to the earth. Their silhouettes stayed hidden in the folds of the hills. But the factory was close now. To attack, they had no choice. The formation rose, climbing past 2,000 meters. That single climb betrayed them. NATO radars caught the signatures instantly. Operators at command posts called out their positions. 50 miles away, 2 American F-16s were on patrol. They belonged to the 526th Fighter Squadron, based out of Aviano, Italy. Their call sign crackled over the air: black flight. The order was simple: black flight, 6 bandits, weapons free. The words sealed the Serbian pilot's fate. Vukmirovic steadied his voice. Stay on target, he told his men. The bombs had to fall, whatever came next. The Yastrebs aligned in pairs, manual sights locked onto rooftops below. Their engines groaned as bomb doors opened. Then the Falcons appeared. 2 white streaks cut across the sky. The Americans tore through the formation at incredible speed. The Serbian cockpits shook violently. Shockwaves rattled the frames of their aging jets. One pilot forced out a nervous laugh. American Ferraris, he muttered. Another voice came through with mocking bravado. But the tension was unmistakable. Vukmirovic snapped back, eyes forward. Focus. The mission wasn't finished. The target grew larger in the crosshairs. Steel, concrete, and shadows filled the glass. The pilot's hands tightened on release switches, one by one. Bombs tumbled free. 6 heavy shapes fell in silence. Then the earth answered. Explosions ripped through the compound. Buildings folded inward, smoke boiling upward. The strike had succeeded. For a heartbeat, the Serbians felt relief. Their task was complete. The factory was burning, but the relief died quickly, because overhead, the Falcons had turned. This time, they were not passing through. Predators had circled back, missiles armed, radar locked, eyes fixed. The hunt was about to begin. They knew the Americans could have ended them from miles away, But the Falcons had come close for a reason. This time, they weren't here to warn. They were here to kill. The bombs had landed. The factory was gone. But victory lasted only seconds. NATO's order was clear: engage. The Americans banked hard into the attack. Their Falcons closed distance like silver arrows. In the Serbian cockpits, the warnings began. Radar tones screamed in shrill bursts. Every pilot felt the noose tighten. Fox 3. The first AIM-120 AMRAAM streaked off the rail. Its smoke trail cut a sharp line through the sky. The missile found its mark instantly. A Jastreb shattered into fragments mid-turn. Flaming debris spiraled into the valley below. Zlatan Krnalic saw the flash behind him. He thought it was his own plane. Then the fireball consumed his wingman. "The Americans are behind us," he shouted. His voice cracked through the static. The formation broke apart in panic. "Scatter," another pilot yelled. 6 aircraft dissolved into chaos. Every man for himself. The Falcons split too. One climbed high to cover. The other dove low, locked onto its prey. Krnalic felt the pressure next. The shriek of lock-on alarms filled his headset. He looked back and F-16 was right there. The Falcon held steady on his tail. Its nose tracked every desperate maneuver. Krnalic yanked the stick and dove for the valleys. He skimmed treetops so low his wings trembled. Power lines whipped by in terrifying flashes. Still, the Falcon never let go. Fox 2. This time, an AIM-9 Sidewinder lanced forward. It chased the heat of his engines. The missile closed fast, screaming toward his tail. Krnalic rolled hard, pulling under the wires. A blast shook the jet like thunder. The explosion tore half his vertical stabilizer away. His instruments went red. His radio died into static. He was wounded but still alive. Smoke curled from the fuselage. Fuel leaked into the slipstream. He gripped the controls with both hands. Every tremor threatened to rip the jet apart, but he refused to bail out. Above the hills, another Serbian wasn't as lucky. An AMRAAM locked and fired in seconds. The missile tore through his fuselage. The jet erupted into fire. The pilot ejected into the smoke. His parachute bloomed just above the wreckage. Ranko Vukmirovic pushed his own aircraft to the edge. "Stay with me," he shouted into the ether. But half his men were already gone. Another Falcon locked onto his wingman. Fox 3. The missile struck like lightning. The Jastreb exploded in a violent roar. Pieces fell flaming into the valley. The pilot never made it out. "Pesic is down," Vukmirovic cried. His voice was tight, frantic, but no one could answer. Krnalic wrestled with his crippled jet. The gauges danced wildly. Every second felt like the last. Behind him, the Falcon still circled. It could have finished him, but the missile never came. Instead, the hunt shifted to fresh targets. Another Serbian pair tried to dive for cover. The Falcons stayed on them without mercy. A Sidewinder found its mark first. The detonation ripped across the tail. The pilot bailed, chute swallowed in flames. In NATO command, voices were cold and sharp. Bandit destroyed. Splash confirmed. Each kill was logged, clinical and detached. But in the Serbian cockpits, it was chaos. Men shouted over alarms, searching for exits. The sky was filled with smoke and fire. Every valley that promised safety turned into a trap. The Falcons could see through terrain, through cover. No hiding, no escape. The Serbians twisted, dove, tried every desperate move, but the Americans pressed in relentlessly. Every angle favored the Falcons. Krnalic steadied his breath. His nose dipped, then held. He scanned for any sign of help. Nothing. No wingman. Only fire on the horizon. He tightened his harness, ready to eject. But altitude was low, the risk too high. He had to keep flying. Behind him, the Falcon pulled away at last. It banked upward, searching for another kill. For a moment, Krnalic was alone in the sky. The valleys echoed with explosions. 4 Serbian planes were already down. Parachutes scattered across the burning hills. For the survivors, it was only a matter of time. The Americans had speed, missiles, radar. The Serbians had only desperation. What unfolded was no battle. It was execution, carried out with precision. And the hunt was still far from over. The Jastrebs tried to dive low, to vanish into the valleys, but the Falcons were faster, sharper, built for the kill. In those minutes, the skies over Bosnia became a slaughterhouse. Ranko Vukmirovic had no illusions left. Half his formation was already gone, but he still had Goran Zaric at his side. "Follow me," he ordered, his voice ragged. They dropped low, engines screaming, hugging the ground. It was their final gamble. Ahead, a wall of cliffs rose out of the valley. Vukmirovic's idea was desperate: pull up at the very last moment. Maybe the Falcons would overshoot. Maybe luck would intervene. The two Jastrebs thundered forward. The ground rushed toward them in a blur of gray rock. Every second closer tightened the grip of gravity. "Pull up," he shouted. Zaric yanked back hard. His body crushed into the seat. His jet screamed as it clawed upward. But Vukmirovic was too late. His underpowered J-21 couldn't climb fast enough. The nose clipped stone, and fire swallowed the cockpit. The explosion lit the valley like a torch. No parachute appeared. No escape. Ranko Vukmirovic was gone. Zaric saw the fireball behind him. He screamed into the radio, but no one answered. His only choice was to eject. The canopy blasted off and he went in. He pulled the cord, but his jet was too low, too fast. The parachute had no time to bloom. The silk tangled in the wreckage. The blast consumed him instantly. In a second, Zaric joined his commander in the flames. The Falcons burst through the smoke. Their contrails cut the sky above the burning cliff. The hunt continued without pause. For NATO, it was another kill confirmed. For the Serbians, 2 more lives vanished. The massacre showed no sign of ending. The battlefield stretched across the Balkan hills. Smoke columns rose from shattered jets. Parachutes dangled, some swaying gently, others scorched by fire. Radio chatter was broken, desperate. Voices called for help, then cut off. Warning alarms never stopped screaming. Each surviving pilot fought to stay alive. But the Falcons were everywhere. Their missiles carved the sky with lethal precision. In just minutes, 4 Serbian planes were gone. The sky had turned red with fire, and the survivors were flying on sheer instinct. Zlatan Krnilic was one of them. His jet was crippled from an earlier hit. The tail was torn, his radio dead. Fuel leaked, leaving a thin smoke trail behind him. Every control input felt heavy, unsteady. The jet shuddered like it could break apart at any second. He was flying blind and alone. No formation, no guidance, no cover. Just a wounded machine limping toward empty sky. He thought about ejecting, but the ground was too close, too unforgiving. If he jumped, he might not live long enough to land. The silence pressed in around him. Only the rasp of the damaged engine filled his ears. Each vibration was another warning that time was running out. Then movement in his mirrors, a shape sliding into view, an F-16 Falcon, closing fast. His blood turned cold. There was no chance of escape. One missile, one burst, and he was finished. The Falcon pulled alongside, its nose steady, its posture calm, close enough that Krnilic could see the pilot inside. Through the canopy, their eyes met. The American wore a dark visor, his head steady. His hands rested calmly on the controls. Krnilic braced for the flash of a missile. His heart pounded in his throat. This was the end, but no missile came. The Falcon held position, gliding beside him, a silent shadow, not striking. Then it happened. The American raised his hand, a salute, sharp and deliberate. Krnilic stared, frozen in disbelief. He didn't move, couldn't even breathe. Why was he still alive? The Falcon tilted its wings. It pulled upward, roaring into the pale sky. In seconds, it was gone. The Serbian pilot exhaled, his chest heaving. Against all odds, he was still flying. The salute lingered in his mind more than the explosions. He steadied his crippled Jastreb. The wings rattled, the engine sputtered, but the ground below stretched open, offering survival. Around him, the battlefield was devastation. Burning craters marked the valleys. Parachutes floated like ghosts over the hills. 3 Serbian pilots were already dead. 2 more ejected. Their fates uncertain. Krnalic alone was limping towards safety. The Americans had shown their dominance. But in one cockpit, mercy had prevailed. It was a gesture no one expected. Amid the fire and wreckage, one moment stood apart. No missile, no kill, just a salute. And because of it, Zlatan Krnalic lived to tell the tale. The battle was over. Smoke trailed across the Balkan valleys. Wreckage burned in scattered craters below. 6 Serbian Jastrebs had flown that morning. Only 3 pilots survived. The rest were gone, consumed by fire and steel. For NATO, it was a statement. This was the alliance's first real combat engagement, and it ended in absolute dominance. The Americans returned to base without a scratch. Robert Wilbur Wright was credited with 3 kills, the highest score for a U.S. Air Force pilot since Korea. Stephen Yogi Allen added another. Together, they shredded half the formation in minutes. Their Falcons had done exactly what they were designed to do. Aviano Air Base buzzed with the news. The mission was clinical, efficient, decisive. NATO had proven it could enforce the no-fly zone with real fire. On the Serbian side, the contrast was brutal. Their J-21s were relics, underpowered and outdated. They had no radar warning systems, no modern defenses. The Falcons carried AMRAAMs that killed from beyond sight. They tracked targets through valleys, over hills in any weather. The Serbians never stood a chance. Even speed told the same story. The F-16 could climb, accelerate, and turn twice as fast. For the Jastrebs, terrain was their only shield, and even that failed. Tactically, the fight was already decided before it began. Technology tilted the balance so far that courage couldn't bridge the gap. Modern war had shifted away from duels of skill. What mattered now was sensors, missiles, and networks. The Falcons had all 3. The Jastrebs had none. One analyst later called it a demonstration, not a contest. For the Serbians, it felt more like execution. The skies belonged to NATO. And yet, not everything was steel in numbers. One moment stood apart, unforgettable. The American pilot who spared Zlatan Krnalic. He could have fired. The crippled jet was a perfect target. Instead, he raised his hand in salute. It was a choice beyond tactics, a reminder that even in war, humanity can break through. That gesture stayed with Krnalic for life. Spirit mattered too. The Serbian pilots knew the odds. They flew anyway, obeying orders, risking certain death. That kind of discipline spoke of loyalty. They didn't hesitate, even when missiles streaked across the sky. They fought with what they had, and it wasn't enough. On the other side, the Americans carried out orders with precision, but they didn't lose themselves in the killing. That one salute proved as much. The impact reached far beyond that valley. For NATO, confidence soared. The alliance had shown it was willing to use force, not just words. For Serbia, the loss was crippling. Their air force could no longer contest the skies. Factories, convoys, and positions on the ground were suddenly exposed. The psychological blow was just as heavy. Every Serbian pilot knew the truth: NATO controlled the air. No mission would ever feel safe again. History remembers it as the Banja Luka incident. A skirmish in size, but a turning point in meaning. The first time NATO fired in anger, it set the tone for the years ahead. Air power would dominate, not infantry charges or tank columns. Control of the sky meant control of the war. For the Americans, it was another chapter of air supremacy. For the Serbians, it was a warning written in blood. And for Krnalic, it was the day mercy gave him another life. On that day, technology won. NATO proved its strength. Serbia lost its sky, but what remained was not just fire and wreckage. It was a salute, a reminder that even in the darkest battles, humanity can still break through the smoke.